spin to win. Mowing through the Infernal Hordes, cruising through the Undercity, dancing with Tormented Bosses, and advancing deep into the pit is what you want to do in Vessel of Hatred? Then this is the build for you. Welcome Blasters, I'm Mippy and this is my Dance of Knives rogue guide for Diablo 4's Season 6. I have spent over 100 hours in the early access version of Vessel of Hatred to figure out the best build for the new rogue skill Dance of Knives. It is one of the most satisfying and fun builds that I have ever played, so let's get into it. Dance of Knives is a channeled skill that has charges that deplete upon spinning, and you gain charges back when traveling a certain distance. The knives have a chance to pierce and also slow the enemies with the enhanced Dance of Knives upgrade. Dance of Knives has a high lucky hit chance, which is why we use it to proc Victimize frequently. We use Smoke Grenade to daze our enemies and increase our damage against them. And then we have Poison Imbuement because Dance of Knives is an imbuable skill, which we use to further activate poison synergies within the build. We use Shadow Step to become unstoppable whenever we are crowd controlled or to engage the enemies safely. We use Poison Trap for the knockdown and the increased damage against poison enemies. And finally, we use Shadow Clone for the unstoppable and the no witnesses synergies. For our specialization, we use Inner Sight. While we do not benefit from the unlimited energy, we do benefit from the increased critical strike chance. Dance of Knives is also a great leveling skill, because you do not need to maintain energy to cast it. If you start Vessel of Hatred with skill points from Renown from previous seasons, you will have enough to unlock it directly at level 1. For the leveling gear and skill tree, make sure to check out the leveling variant in the planner linked below. Playing through the Vessel of Hatred campaign, doing strongholds and helltides are a great way to level up early. I recommend playing on hard for the optimal progression to experience ratio, but if you take too long to slay mobs, it's also okay to drop it down to normal. Use Dance of Knives in densely packed areas and your other mobility skills to traverse the map faster and pick up Shadow Imbuement for leveling as soon as you can. For leveling, we use the Momentum Key passive, which we switch out later for Victimize. In the endgame variant, we only pick up Puncture to advance the skill tree. We put points into Sturdy and Siphoning Strikes for damage reduction and healing. We pick up Shadow Step as a crowd control break and mobility skill. We put points into Rug to have better chance of surviving against damage over time effects. And then we pick up 1 point in Dance of Knives with the Enhanced Dance of Knives and Disciplined Dance of Knives upgrade. We put points into Unstable Elixirs and Trick Attacks to increase our damage, and the same with Balestra after evading. We do Evade quite frequently because of Shroud of Canderous and Flicker Step. Rapid Gambits is used to fuel our evades even faster. We put up points into Smoke Grenade for more damage against elites and enemies when we hit them. And we pick up Dark Shroud as our main defensive tool, and we generate Dark Shrouds through the Umbrous aspect. Dark Shroud also gives us movement speed, and increases our critical strike chance. We pick up the damaging passives Malice and Exploit, and we put up points into Poison Trap, which has the knockdown and the increased damage against poison enemies. We put 1 point into Poison Imbuement because we only use it to activate poison synergies, and used Mixed Poison Imbuement to have a chance to reset our Poison Imbuement cooldown faster through lucky hits. We pick up Alchemical Advantage for more attack speed and lucky hit chance, and debilitating toxins to have poison enemies deal less damage against us. Then we pick up 3 points into Frigid Finesse for more damage against frozen enemies. We freeze enemies quite regularly through Fists of Fate and the chance to freeze temper. 3 points into Alchemist's Fortune for even more lucky hit chance, and then 5 points into Shadow Clone to minimize the cooldown of it and gain stealth and unstoppable. Finally, our key passive is Victimize. Whenever you deal direct damage to a vulnerable enemy, it has an up to 50% chance to cause an explosion which deals damage around them. This damage is further amplified by our total vulnerable damage bonus. And this is why it's important to stack up vulnerable damage and lucky hit chance on gear wherever possible. Victimize has been changed for Season 6. Now it has an internal cooldown, but it is backloading the damage that would have been dealt between the procs. So for example, hitting 10 mobs and proccing 10 lucky hits on them will still only yield 1 explosion, but this deals the damage of 10 explosions. This also means Victimize scales insanely well with density and lucky hit chance now. The internal cooldown for Victimize is estimated to be around 0.5 seconds, which favors high attacks per second and high lucky hit chance. So why are we using Inner Sight and Shadow Clone and Inner Sight duration tappers? As of the review version in patch 2.0.1 that I've been playing, having Inner Sight gauge full and Shadow Clone active makes your character spin a lot faster when you use Dance of Knives. You deplete the imbuement charges immediately, which is why it is important to have Poison Imbuement. During this time, your attacks with Dance of Knives get uncontrollably fast, which leads to more hits and more Victimize procs. One of the most important pieces of gear is the Amber Crux, not only because it has vulnerable damage, but because it spawns a Shade Totem whenever we use Poison Trap or Smoke Grenade. The Shade Totem is another target we can proc Victimize from, and is great for the backloading of the damage explained earlier. In our weapons we use Sapphires for maximum vulnerable damage. The next important piece of gear is the regular dagger, where we get vulnerable damage on and also temper vulnerable damage. We use the aspect of star shards to make Dance of Knives explode into 6 shards on hit, which deal further damage, but are most importantly used to actually proc more Victimize. The second part of the Dance of Knives aspect of Star Shard is not used for the build at all because we do not use combo points and do not need additional charges. On our crossbow, we also want to stack as much vulnerable damage as we can. We use the vulnerable damage temper and the temper for a chance of Dance of Knives to deal double damage to have more damage when we do not proc Victimize and to make farming lower tiers a little bit easier. The damage of Dance of Knives does not actually influence how much damage Victimize deals. For the aspect on the crossbow, we use Retribution. This increases our damage against stunned and knockdown enemies, which we frequently do through Poison Trap and the Sick rune that casts Concussive Stomp from the Spiritborn. For the helmet, we use Air of Perdition. This is a new mythic unique helmet that increases our critical strike chance and lucky hit chance, so it perfectly slots into this build. It also increases our damage by 60%. We slot in Dexterity gems here. If you do not have Air of Perdition or any of the other listed unique items, make sure to check out the variants in the planner below. For our chest, we use Shroud of Canderas. Shroud of Canderas is an excellent addition to this build because it increases our defense by giving us ranks to Dark Shroud and also gives us a pull whenever we evade and makes grouping the enemies a lot easier for Victimize to deal with them. For the fists, we use Fists of Fate for maximum lucky hit chance and the chance to apply a random crowd control effect. Now that Victimize has been changed, the aspect of Fists of Fate actually works for the proc. So you want to make sure that your chance here is as close to 300% as possible. On the pants, we use the Umbrus aspect to generate Dark Shrouds whenever we attack an enemy with a critical strike. We get armor here to get closer to the 100 armor cap on Torment 4, and also get chance to freeze to ensure that enemies are frozen as often as possible. For our boots, we use the unique boots Flicker Step. Flicker Step reduces our ultimate cooldown whenever we evade through an enemy. As evading happens very frequently in this build because we want to keep mobs grouped up for Victimize, we will use this quite frequently to have our Shadow Clone active all the time. The most important stat to have on Flicker Step here is the damage reduction from close enemies. On our amulet, we're going to use the Noxious Ice aspect. Noxious Ice will help us to deal increased damage against frozen enemies. This is only for poison damage, so we want to make sure that our Dance of Knives is always imbued with poison imbuement, so that our Victimize procs that we generate from it are also labeled as poison damage. The most important stat on the amulet to have is Malice. If you do not have Malice on the amulet, it's a huge damage loss. So even if you cannot get any of the other passives, make sure that Malice is on it. We also temper total armor here to reach the 100 armor cap in Torment 4. If you have greater FX armor on the pants, you do not need total armor here and can go for dodge chance, more imbuement charges, or anything else that would help you in the build. Alternatives to the listed passives would be something like critical strike chance, lucky hit chance, or movement speed. On our ring, we're using Bursting Venoms. Bursting Venoms here is used to have poison imbuement always ready for Dance of Knives. The most important stat to have here is vulnerable damage. We also temper Inner Sight duration because we want Inner Sight to last as long as possible. On our second ring, we're using the aspect of True Sight, which gives us increased damage while our Inner Sight Gauge is full. The most important stat here is the lucky hit chance to make an enemy vulnerable for 2 seconds. We absolutely need this stat to be on one of our rings because it ensures that all the enemies are vulnerable all the time and makes proccing Victimize very easy and smooth. For our runewords, we use Back Ohm and Knock Sig. Back gives us offering whenever we travel 5 meters, and Ohm invokes Barbarian's Warcry for 15% increased damage. Knock gives us offering whenever we inflict a hard crowd control, and Sig casts Spiritborn's Concussive Stomp, which knocks down enemies and also has lucky hit chance. On the starting board, we use Headhunter to increase our damage and to have more stats to reach the requirements for rare nodes in the later boards. We pick up All Resistance and Maximum Life, and make our way into Eldritch Bounty. We pick up Eldritch Bounty for the increased maximum resistance and the increased damage for the imbued element. In this case, it's poison. Eldritch Bounty offers us a lot of maximum life and all resistance and armor, which is why we pick it up, because it is great defensively. We socket in the Exploit glyph, which is the most important glyph in this build. Exploit gives us additional vulnerable damage that feeds into our Victimize multiplier. So we want to make sure that we fill out the glyph as much as possible with strength nodes around it. We then path into Exploit weaknesses, where we socket in Fluidity. We use Fluidity here because it boosts the magic nodes around Artifice, which gives us more vulnerable damage. Fluidity also increases our damage whenever we cast an agility skill, which Dance of Knives is. We pick up the Exploit rare node for vulnerable damage and lucky hit chance, and path into the Exploit weaknesses legendary node. With how frequently we attack and how many lucky hits we score, we stack up this bonus very quickly. We pick up some more armor and maximum life, and get the Cold Resilience rare node to increase our cold resistance and cover up the resistances in Torment 4. Then we also pick up Unassailable for more defense. We then path into Cheap Shot, where we socket in Devious. Devious is a great glyph to increase our damage against Crocodile enemies, which we apply very often, so we benefit from this glyph a lot. On Cheap Shot, we also pick up some maximum life and armor, and make our way into the legendary node, which is active very often because we apply a lot of Croc controls. This also applies to staggered bosses. A very important breakpoint to hit here is the Dexterity for Safeguard, which reduces our damage taken from elites. On our final board, we make our way into No Witnesses, where we socket in Control and fill up the glyph area as much as we can. Control gives us increased damage against Croc-controlled enemies and those that are frozen. This happens very frequently in the build, so it is one of the strongest glyphs that we can utilize. We pick up ultimate damage here to fuel our Low Witnesses legendary node. Due to having Flicker Step equipped, we do not need to pick up every single ultimate damage node in the Paragon. No Witnesses is capped to 45%, so having a total of 450 ultimate damage is enough to max it out. No Witnesses gives us increased damage whenever we cast an ultimate skill, which happens very frequently. We also pick up some more maximum life and all resist here. If you're having trouble reaching the stat requirements for the rare nodes on the last board, you can also socket in diamonds in your helmet instead of emeralds, and put in more points into strength and intelligence on the starting board. For Mercenaries, we use Subo to highlight enemies and materials on the map, and to get increased lucky hit chance against enemy that he's hitting. As for our reinforcement, we use Rahir to give us a shield whenever we cast our ultimate skill. Alright, for the playstyle. You hold down Dance of Knives while fighting. Use Poison Imbuement whenever it is ready to have your Dance of Knives imbued at all times. Use Shadow Clone when it is ready and your inner sight gauge is full. You can use Poison Trap and Smoke Grenade on elites and bosses. Make sure to engage with Shadow Step when your Shadow Clone is not on cooldown, or with Dash if you're farming easier content and have dropped Poison Trap for it. Then you follow up with an Evade to pull mobs together with Shroud of Candorus. And then start spinning with Dance of Knives. It is important to keep the mobs grouped up at all times for big Victimize explosions, so make sure to get into that habit of evading. Evading also reduces your cooldown of your ultimate skill through Flicker Step. The Shadow Explosion from Shroud of Candorus also has lucky hit chance, and can proc Victimize. This is why you will sometimes immediately blow up a pack after pulling it together, or shortly after when you toss a smoke grenade into it. When inner sight is full and Shadow Clone is active, you start spinning significantly faster and deplete your imbuement charges almost immediately. If that happens, make sure to stand in your Bursting Venoms pool and activate Poison Imbuement again if you ran out of charges. You do not need to spam Poison Imbuement when standing inside the pool, because tapping it once is enough to keep the charges active until the pool runs out. Inner sight has a 4-second internal cooldown before it can activate again after being full. You can manipulate this to your advantage on bosses if you spawn a totem beforehand to time the gauge being full exactly for when you stagger the boss. On bosses, use Shadow Clone only once your inner sight gauge is full and the boss is staggered for maximum damage output. You can also use Dash instead of Poison Trap if you want to go a little bit faster and are farming lower tier content, and you can use Caltrops in place of Shadow Step if you're pushing. There are no attack speed breakpoints for Dance of Knives, other than using daggers over swords for a faster base animation. More attack speed only increases its base damage, but does not throw knives any faster. As for lucky hit chance, Shroud of Candorus has an innate 100% lucky hit chance on its explosion. This means that you want to reach at least 100% additional lucky hit chance to guarantee a Victimize drop upon pulling the mobs together. This can easily be done by equipping Fist of Fate. Further lucky hit chance still greatly benefits the build by increasing the chance for Dance of Knives to proc Victimize. A blade from Dance of Knives would guarantee a Victimize proc at around plus 570% lucky hit chance, which is practically unreachable. So get as much lucky hit chance as you can without sacrificing other stats. Alright blasters, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm definitely looking forward to Spin to Win in Season 6, and Vessel of Hatred launches on October 8th, 1 AM CEST. I'll be streaming the expansion start live on Twitch TV/Mippy, and I'll see you guys there.